Manuel, your turn. You start to and
The neat thing, the thing, why I love XAF and XPO in the first place is like XPO is really one of the best ORM mappers that are out there. It's blazing fast. It has like 20 or something like this, or at least 15 database providers.
it's 14 plus all the other ones that are not official, which are basically
with unofficial, I've written database drivers for XPO myself, and it was not a huge deal. Of course, it's work, but I managed to come up with projects that are like 10 years old and they are fresh as today. So the thing is, XPO is evolving all the time, and XAF as well. And the neat thing about XPO and in combination with XAF is like they are like a super dream team because they were developed at the more or less same time frame. Or XPO is older than XAF, but it's like you couldn't write faster line of business applications or like CRUD type like applications with any tool out there. I've used hundreds of different tools, like with pure code generation, reading in the database schema, but nothing is so flexible and forward thinking and modular than XAF is. There's nothing on the market like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, yeah, go ahead. Oh, sorry.
And then the thing is, you can focus really on the business needs and on all the nitty-gritty details that all the business rules come with, and don't have to spend hours and hours on the technical ramping up and doing all the plumbing, getting stuff working, and doing database updates, writing views, and dealing with user customizations, all that kind of stuff. Nothing on the market is like that flexible and complete in that kind of sense, and it's always impressing because I ported over my personal source base to XAF, my XAF source base over to Blazor. Of course, my solution growed over the time, and it's not that easy to just file new project, but basically it was file new project, copy a bunch of code over into the start, delete the other stuff, and I was running on Blazor. There was one issue I had, and I wrote in the support center, and that's the way, because I am doing really crazy stuff with things, and with XAF in especially, and I did something that wasn't 100% compatible with the way the XAF team was dealing with it. And I had a short conversation with Dennis on the support center, and I guess 20 minutes later, I got my application running on the browser using Blazor. Of course, not everything was working. There is a lot of things to do, like editors and authentication that's a little bit too different because it's all a new model. But basically, my app is really working. Mm-hmm. That's mind blown.
Well, for me, it was like somehow like, well, we used to be, where I was working, we used to be DevExpress customers. And at that time, we were using Visual Basic 6. So can you imagine how long ago it was? And then we got the .NET subscription, and you get the Visual Basic 6 controls for free. So at one time, we were basically testing XPO. We thought that it was a good idea, especially because at that moment I was working in a software shop here actually it was in California, but I was working from El Salvador. And basically each of our customers, they have a different database engine. And they had at that moment IBM DB2, Postgres SQL Server, and some of them had Oracle at that time. So we always have to, and it was like really in the early time of .NET, where adult.NET didn't have all the interfaces. So every time you have to create a concrete data adapter and so on, so on, so on. So your code was somehow attached to one vendor of the database. Unless you create your own factory pattern and so on, so on, so on, that is another plumbing code that you have to do. So when and also we have customers in Firebase and Interbase. So it's like, it was impossible to maintain.
Yep.
Like, oh, this customer wants this report, but it's using the data adapter for Oracle native, and it's not an interface because that came in .NET 2, I think. So we said, like, let's give it a try to XPO, and actually it went really well. As funny as it is, one of the first things that I did in XPO was to create a provider for Pervasive 8, which is not supported, because they start the support for Pervasive 9, and all of our customers were Pervasive 8. So it's like, okay, Jose, you have a new task. Try to connect these to, and somehow it was kind of easy. And after that, I've done a lot of providers for XPO. And well, it was like that. It was single code based, different databases, which at that moment, it was something like really like breaking ground somehow. And then when SAF came, I'm not good with the UI. I cannot draw a straight line in a paper. I'm not good drawing at all. But I think I'm good doing code. I hope that I'm good doing code. So I thought, well, if I do this, I don't have to drag and drop controls to the user interface, which is something that I don't like at all. Because sometimes I remember my boss told me.
I need to pick out my color picker. I guess I wrote in Blazor. But talk ahead.
Okay. So basically, I remember one time that my boss, I was like 20 something years old, and he told me like, Jose, your screens really suck. I don't know what you're thinking. So then I started using SAF, and everyone was thinking like, this is great. How you improve? So I mean, how can you do it so fast? It looks so good. And you should see the icons that I used to use in the user interface. So after that, it's like, okay, forget about everything. I will use SAF for everything. Even if it's an application that only has one window, I will use it. So then I start to try to, actually, there is one guy from Xamarin, which is Charles Pertz. I don't know what's his last name, Pertz or something like that. The one who talks about in graphics and the other UI drawing components for Xamarin. And he said something like, it's really interesting. When you just have one tool, you always wonder, how can I do whatever I want just using this tool without moving to any other platform or tool? So I started thinking about SAF in that sense, like in the absence of all other tools, thinking that SAF is the only thing that I have on hand. How will I do it? So that was my goal somehow. It's like, how will I do it if I only have XPO and SAF? And then I found all the ways possible. And so like, forget that I will go to any other platform. I will stay in SAF forever.
The neat thing, I guess you talked about is like, what would be the XAF way to do it? That's something. If you work a long time with XAF, you have to do. You're thinking in a little bit different mindset because it's more model driven, but it also helps to keep your UI stuff out of the way. And I think that's especially for younger developers or not so experienced developers in the first run a really great experience, so they don't mix up layers and mixing UI stuff with domain and so it helps really.
Yes,
but that's the thing. What is scalability? Is the scalability about developer resource scalability? It's great. It's on scalability on it can start small, iterating fast on smaller stuff. of course, you have to optimize here and there. Right? There's no. We are all developers. We know there is some kind of optimization. We have to make some from point to point. There is no silver bullet, but XAF is like in the sweet spot where you can really go quick and fast and get amazing results with a really small focus team or alone, and getting stuff really out of the window without having to think about all the complexity that's going on. And if it is successful, or it needs to scale, it can scale really well with minor adjustments. And
Exactly. Like there are
that's the reason why I'm so excited about Blazor, because there are just two things you really need to know to be productive with Blazor and C#. It's like you have to know a little bit HTML, you have to know CSS. That's nothing against it. You can use Bootstrap or something like this, of course. That lowers the barrier for not so experienced front-end developers. But if you take something like Blazor and XAF in combination, it's like it's abstracting enough so you can build great UIs with a good user experience without having to tackle every nitty-gritty
minor
detail.
thing.
And on the other hand, it's like it can scale really well from a user perspective as well.